Hey, my name is Dan Craven, sometimes better known as Dan from Nam, and I am in Omaruru, Namibia, which is my hometown. I'm a ex-professional road cyclist, two-time Olympian, raced the Vuelta a España once, no Tour de France, and basically the more I traveled the world and saw more than 40 countries that I did professional races in, the more I realized how special my hometown and my country is and how talented and amazing people are here. And I felt that if we can have beautiful, bespoke, custom fit bicycles made in a place like London or Portland that sell for thousands of dollars, why can't we do the same thing in a place like Omaruru, where so many of people here are amazingly talented with their hands. They've just never necessarily had the opportunities that someone like myself has had, be it education, be it mentorship, be it availability of tools and finances. And so, starting in 2018, Petrus and Zacharias, two gentlemen who worked for my family since 1999, I've been teaching them to build frames. I've had master frame builders, 4 different master frame builders from Europe come out for a total of 8 months to teach them in their comfort zone how to make beautifully put together steel bicycles, where we cut tubes with a hacksaw and a file until they fit so tightly together that you can't see light between them, cutting at exact angles and distances, fractions of millimeters, and using brass rods and even silver, melting silver to hold the bicycles together. So basically I think of these bicycles as jewelry or potentially even a Swiss watch. And we have created Onguza bicycles. On the edge of the desert in Africa, these are really just, they make my heart sing. And if anyone believes in the potential of Africa and in the ability of not only Africa but small towns anywhere, like our town makes bicycles, what does your town make? Because if we can build $9,000 bicycles in a small town in Africa, can we do in the next small town? This is called a mitre template. I've not spent the time because I'm not good with scissors to cut the rest, but for a demonstration. So this was for this. So in theory, this should match up perfectly. Et voila. Yeah. So see that. So this is the CAD program where you have to input the exact size of all of the tubes. So then, actually this would go the opposite direction. And then you have to see drive side. This is where the gears are. So this is the drive side. And then you can see there's this line. So they etch this line using some tools on that table. So then this, if I cut it out properly, it's a lot easier, but this line must match exactly with that line. And then you do that around there, and then it needs to be perfectly rounded, not skew. And you put a piece of tape around that, and now you can see that shape matches that shape. Exactly. So that's how you have to cut that. So you tape that on, but then of course you need to tape it on in the right place, because if you tape it on here, then this thing is going to be too short. And then you take the hacksaw and the file and you cut it long first.
Yeah, and then you file it.
And then you shorter.
It fits perfectly.
And like, she's so full of love and all she wants is love, and she just irritates us. Mitzi, can't you get enough? No. File. Take the tube. No. File. And you literally go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards until you have this where I put it. There's no daylight. And there's no wobble, and there's no distortion, and there's no pressure. because this and this in the jig are being held stable, so you can obviously squeeze it in, but then the moment you take it out of the jig, it's going to jump back out. It can't be squeezed in, it needs to just sit
like a
just
puzzle.
right. Exactly. So then what happens if that tube is then there in the jig? You put a tack, which is a drop of brass, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do 2, you can do 6. And then it basically holds it in position, and then you can take it to the alignment table before you start brazing, like you guys saw. Are these things. Okay, so this is called a seat stay bridge. It is for structural integrity, but at the same time, we built one arch. We didn't like the look of it. We're like, how do we make this look unique and different and ours? And by simply putting 2 arches, I've not seen anyone else. It's such a simple and beautiful design, but I've not seen anyone else use it. And so it's something that we are using across all of our bicycles that have the...
More or less like a signature.
Exactly, it's a little bit of a extra signature, extra detail, and it's something that is entirely done by hand. There's no designs involved. It's just fitting, testing, making sure it works, and that's what we're about to start on as
So
one
even
of the
each-
final steps.
Each double arch is still unique.
Each
With
double
this,
arch, exactly. I mean, you can
Yeah.
see how different
The shapes
even
are, yeah.
these two are.
Yeah,
And it's,
so that's another added fact.
you know, do you want conformity or do you want uniqueness? This is something that's made by hand. You know, if you buy a Savile Row suit, not every stitch is going to look exactly the same. And if you don't like that, well, that's fine. But I happen to love it. And if you understand how the bikes are made, you should really love it. One more thing that needs to go on the bicycle is this stainless steel sleeve that goes on the top, which basically, as I said earlier, protects the paint but adds a beautiful feature. And then this is just a very normal washer, like nuts and bolts and washers, but it's a stainless steel washer that gets used there. So final little details going on the bike. So let's go and see Saki in action. This is stainless steel, and when you braze at 900 degrees Celsius, steel to steel, there's a literal bond that happens between the brass and the steel. But the same bond doesn't happen with stainless steel. So when you're using stainless steel, you need something else that bonds in the correct way, and that happens to be silver. So anywhere on the bicycle which is a touch point or a slightly moving point, we always use stainless steel, like the water bottle bosses, the internal cable routing guides, the dropouts at the back of the bike because the wheel needs to slide in and out, and of course the seat stay bridges, which we're currently working on. And whenever this happens, so if we just look straight here at the water bottle boss, that is not brass, that is silver. And the best way to see it is if you come back to the back end of the bike, you can see this, there's a slot cut into the tube that the dropout fits perfectly into, and that needs to be at the correct angle. So if you get the angle cut into this in the wrong way, then it's going to make your whole dropout be at an angle, which is going to impact how your back wheel sits in the bike. So that's the amount of attention to detail and the finesse that you need, because everything we do is basically with a hacksaw and a file, and the amazing team is able to cut with a hacksaw into a round tube at a very specific degree. And keep in mind that that's basically 4 different cuts into a round tube at a very specific angle. And then it's brazed using silver. Because this is stainless steel, that has to be silver. We're still going to put another nail through there for extra strength. And so basically, this is jewelry. Like working with silver, working with that amount of precision, it's jewelry.
That's pretty crashed.
Yeah. So I was the leader of the Africa Tour points, and I was racing the Tour of Maroc, and had a huge pile up in the gutter, and they basically neutralized the race. It was such a bad pile up. I had to get onto Tunisia's spare bike, which was a size small. I'm a size large, very much. Saddle, change new pedals, take my pedals of my broken bike onto the spare bike. It's insane. Chase back to the peloton, which neutralized section had already ended because the yellow jersey had also crashed, was already back. Got back, I was in bits. My teammate gave me his bike, which was still too small for me, but still better. And shortly after that, I got in the breakaway and basically moved up to 5th in GC, wearing this jersey after the crash. And there was a team, I'm pretty sure a team got paid off by the yellow jersey wearer. Had that team not started chasing in the back, I would have ridden into yellow this day. So that one definitely stands out. There's another jersey that I also crashed in. The one jersey that's missing from this collection is a Namibian national team jersey, which also looked similar to this, which was the day I qualified for the Rio Olympics. But basically, it was cut off my body and thrown into a dustbin before I had a choice. You know, this team basically changed my life. Going from racing in Switzerland and Italy to racing in the UK, I was absolutely demotivated. You know, racing in the rain and the cold. I really struggled, but I didn't grow as a cyclist, but I really grew as a person. Like, my world opened up to me, and I made some of the most important connections I made in the cycling world. Went on some of the most amazing trips, like the 3 years on this team with John Herity and the guys was truly phenomenal. The biggest team I was on, Team Europe car, being with Thomas Vaclair on a team racing the Vuelta a España, that was truly amazing. This was, I think, my last race of 2014, which was the Tour of China, which of course was an experience in itself. And so it takes a lot of skill to make a braze that ends on a straight line. And you can see that really beautifully there and there. You have to be standing here with a torch and a 900 degrees Celsius flame and a brazing rod in these little corners. You know, like, how do you do that? Like, it's such a tricky area to be working.
It's like a surgeon, yeah.
Exactly, it's like a surgeon. And so if there's a spot where I'm like, oh, there's too much heat, it's like, yeah, well, you know, I'm going to accept that one.
My name is Petrus Mufenge. This is my job.
Do you enjoy it?
Yes, I'm enjoying it.
Is this the first one you made?
Yes.
And you learned how to build bikes by making your own bike?
Yes. I'm proud.
Robin Mather, who's unfortunately doesn't build anymore, but he was an award-winning British frame builder and a judge at Bespoked, the biggest handmade bike show in the UK. He came out to Namibia for a month, and the first 3 weeks of the month we were just teaching Petrus and Zacharias how to braze, how to do things, how to miter, how to use their tools, how to look after their tools. And the final week, we surprised them. We'd gotten tubing and we laid it out on the floor in the shape of a bicycle. And we walked them into a room and was like, now let's see what you learned in the first 3 weeks. And they built their own bicycles and frames and forks in the final week. And it was basically the test of like, look what we've learned. But of course, doing that in the presence of someone like Robin Mather and then repeating it again without him is a different story. But you have to factor in that I was still living in Spain at the time, and then I moved to California for 2 years. So Petrus and Zacharias were very much left on their own for a lot of the time, and then every time you would they would hit a problem and production would stop, and then sometimes it would take like 6 months before I would come back, before that I could solve this small problem. And even if it was just a tiny problem, it would, like, if it's enough of a problem, it holds everything up. And then I'd be here for 3 months and we'd continue slowly, and then I'd leave again for 9 months, and then they'd start working until they hit a problem, so it was very stop-start. And of course at the time they were still working on the farm, building mountain bike trails, doing all kinds of things, but it was only in 2020 when I got stuck in Namibia for 9 months during lockdown that we had a full 9 months, me, them together working. Every day we were allowed to work, because obviously during lockdown you weren't allowed to work that much. And that really sort of got us up to a real amazing level. And then Tommy Salmon, who builds Muller bicycles in Spain, he came out in 2022 and 2023, each time for 3 months, and spent it with us. And it was those 3 months that took them from being able to build bicycles to building amazing bicycles. And it was the third 3 months where it was all 4 of them, so Tilomwene and Sakeos, on site. So, everyone was sort of gaining knowledge at the same time, and they've been flying ever since. So this is Olympic bike. So this is the bike I was supposed to race the 2020 Tokyo Olympics on, and instead of doing that, I got COVID. 24 hours, tested positive for COVID 24 hours before my flight to Tokyo. And that's why it's been lying wrapped up here, because I'm not really sure what to do with it, and it's basically time to get it out of retirement, build it up and actually use the bicycle properly again. This bicycle is extremely special. This is a 3D printed aerodynamic stainless steel lug. Same there, the dropouts are also 3D printed stainless steel. We had 2 aeronautics engineers helping to work on this. Sturdy, who makes sturdy bicycles in the UK, but also Josh Portner, one of the owners of Silka, which is one of my favorite brands in the cycling world. He was also involved in helping to make this a reality. So this is actually a titanium 3D printed fork and integrated cockpit, and then Columbus tubing and a carbon integrated seat post from the US. So this bicycle was basically, what is the best possible bicycle that we can build in Omaruru that's going to be the most competitive to race at the Olympics. It would have been probably the heaviest bike on the start line, but not by a significant amount that it would have actually changed the outcome of my race. And it would have been the most interesting and special bike, and basically the motivation from this bicycle is what got Namibia a place at the Olympics and got me training for the extra 2 years it took to qualify and be selected and train for the race. Like, had it not been for this, Namibia wouldn't have had a spot at the Tokyo Olympics. And yeah, it's really time that we get it back up and running. the reason that we haven't built more bikes like this is because there is so much outside help that went into it, which is amazing, but at the same time it's less of our work and it's more of other people's work. And so we've proven to ourselves that we can build amazing high-tech bikes like this, but we feel that it's more of ourselves, more of our work that goes into the normal bicycles that we create. Whereas this is such a international project, it sort of loses a little bit of who we are. That said, I am starting to work on a new bike that involves another carbon integrated seat post, because that's entirely going to be our design, our work, us, you know, truly something fun and special.
What's the colour scheme?
So only 2 bicycles have been painted in this full colour scheme. Normally on the first edition of our bicycles, only the fork and the stem have been in this colour, which is called the funky cow. Normally the frames have different colours, but you know, for a little bit of extra splash, we've done the whole frame like this. There are very few things that hold as much cultural significance in Namibia as cattle. To some people, cattle are holy. To almost everyone, cattle are really, really important. It's like how many heads of cattle someone has is a real sign of their worth. And so we want to celebrate the Namibian people and the things that the Namibian people hold for special. And so cattle was an obvious choice. You know, it's also a little bit light-hearted and not taking ourselves too seriously. And the yellow comes in because that signifies the people, the energy, the vibrancy, the culture. That's who we are. Like, I think of Namibians and I think of color and energy. And so we combine them to make the funky cow, and it's just something that now simply belongs somewhere in the design of our bicycles.